The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. I don't want kids with you. They'd be ugly and slow. My wife Serena stood in our kitchen, wine glass in hand, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the stem as she delivered what would become the final blow to our marriage. Her cosmetic sales trainer smile never wavered, the same practiced expression she used to manipulate clients into buying overpriced foundation. I'm Lucas Morgan, 33 years old, and I've spent the last 8 years as a mechanical drafting specialist at Midwest Industrial Solutions. I design machinery that builds the things people actually need: conveyor systems, manufacturing equipment, the unglamorous backbone of American industry. Serena always said my job was boring, that I lacked ambition. Maybe she was right about the ambition part, but boring? The woman who spent her days convincing housewives they needed $40 lip gloss was calling me boring. Did you hear me, Lucas? Serena's voice carried that particular edge she'd perfected over our 5 years of marriage. I said, I don't want children with you. I set down my beer and looked at her. Really looked at her. When had those green eyes become so cold? When had her smile become a weapon instead of something that used to make my day better? I heard you, I said quietly. Good, because Janet was asking today if we were trying, and I told her absolutely not. Can you imagine? Little Lucas Jr.'s running around, probably inheriting your complete lack of social skills, and my sister Valerie's boring personality. That was the thing about Serena. She never just insulted you. She had to drag other people down too, especially Valerie. Her older sister had always been kind to me, probably the only member of Serena's family who treated me like an actual human being instead of an inconvenient accessory. Valerie's not boring, I said, surprising myself by speaking up. Serena laughed, that sharp sound that used to be musical but now felt like nails on a chalkboard. Oh, please, Lucas. She spends her days working with disabled kids as an occupational therapist, drives a 10-year-old Honda, and hasn't been on a date in 2 years. If that's not boring, I don't know what is. I stood up from the kitchen table, my chair scraping against the tile floor. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something other than resigned acceptance. I felt clarity. You know what, Serena? You're right. Her eyebrows shot up. She'd been expecting an argument, maybe some pleading, not agreement. I am? Yeah, kids with me probably would be a terrible idea. I walked past her toward the hallway. Good thing we won't have to find out. What's that supposed to mean? I paused at the bottom of the stairs. It means I'm done pretending this marriage is something it's not. Lucas, don't be dramatic. We were just talking. No, Serena, you were talking. You've been talking for 5 years, and I've been listening. But I'm done listening to someone who thinks I'm too stupid and ugly to father her children. I went upstairs and pulled my old duffel bag from the closet. The same bag I'd used in college, before I'd met Serena at that party, where she'd seemed so different from the other girls. Back when she'd laughed at my jokes instead of rolling her eyes. Back when she'd said she loved how grounded and real I was. Funny how grounded and real had somehow transformed into boring and ugly over the years. I packed methodically. Work clothes, toiletries, my laptop, a few books. Serena appeared in the doorway as I was zipping up the bag. You're being ridiculous, she said, but there was something in her voice I hadn't heard before, uncertainty. Maybe, but I'd rather be ridiculous somewhere else. Where are you going to go? Your parents live in Florida, and your friends... She stopped herself, but we both knew what she'd been about to say. Most of our friends were really her friends, people from her work or the gym who tolerated me because I came with her. I'll figure it out. I walked past her again, bag in hand. She followed me down the stairs, her heels clicking on the hardwood. Lucas, wait. We can talk about this. Maybe I was a little harsh. A little harsh? I turned to face her at the front door. Serena, you just told me you don't want children with me because they'd be ugly and slow. That's not harsh. That's cruel. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. You meant every word, just like you meant it when you told your friends last month that I was adequate in bed but not exactly exciting. Just like you meant it when you said I'd never amount to anything because I don't have the drive to be successful. Her face flushed. She hadn't realized I'd overheard that conversation with Janet and Marie, her 2 closest friends and biggest enablers. You were eavesdropping? I was getting a beer from the kitchen while you 3 were gossiping in the living room. Hard to avoid hearing when you weren't exactly whispering. I opened the front door. The October air was crisp, carrying the smell of burning leaves from somewhere in the neighborhood. It felt like freedom. Don't do this, Lucas. You're being emotional. Sleep on it, and we can discuss this rationally tomorrow. I've been sleeping on it for months, Serena. Every night, listening to you sigh like sharing a bed with me is some kind of burden. Every morning, watching you check your phone and smile at messages from people who actually matter to you. That's not... It is. And you know what? I'm tired of being the person you settled for. I'm tired of being your backup plan, your safe choice, your adequate husband. I stepped onto the porch and turned back one last time. I'll be in touch about getting the rest of my stuff. Lucas! Her voice cracked, and for a moment, she almost sounded like the woman I'd married. You can't just leave. We have a mortgage, shared accounts, a life together. We have a house and some bank accounts. That's not the same thing as a life. I walked to my truck, threw my bag in the back, and drove away without looking back. In the rearview mirror, I could see Serena standing in the doorway, still holding her wine glass, probably already planning how she'd spin this story to make me the villain. That was 3 months ago. 3 months that changed everything. I spent the first week after leaving Serena crashing on the couch of my coworker Danny, a good guy who didn't ask too many questions and had excellent taste in takeout Chinese food. But I knew I couldn't impose forever, so I started looking for a place of my own. That's when Valerie called. Lucas, it's Valerie, Serena's sister. I know who you are, I said, surprised to hear from her. We'd always gotten along well at family gatherings, but we'd never talked one-on-one. Right. Sorry. I heard about you and Serena. Let me guess. She told you I abandoned her for no reason and broke her heart. There was a pause. Actually, she told me you left because she said something about not wanting kids with you. She seemed to think it was funny. That stung, but it didn't surprise me. Of course, Serena would find humor in the destruction of our marriage. Anyway, Valerie continued, I wanted you to know that I think she's an idiot. Now that surprised me. Valerie? No, hear me out. I've watched my sister treat you like garbage for years, and I've wanted to say something, but it wasn't my place. But now that you're not married anymore, I can tell you the truth. You deserved better than her. I was sitting in my truck outside a potential apartment complex, staring at a building that looked like it had been designed by someone who hated both architecture and human happiness. Thank you. That means a lot. I also wanted to ask you something. I know you're looking for a place, and I have a situation that might work for both of us. Valerie explained that she'd bought a duplex 2 years ago as an investment property, living in one side and renting out the other. Her tenant had just moved out, and she was dreading the process of finding someone new. I know it might be weird, given the family connection, but you're probably the only potential tenant I know who isn't seriously dangerous or involved in something illegal. I laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd had in weeks. That's a pretty low bar. You'd be surprised how many people can't clear it. The duplex was in Riverside, a quiet neighborhood about 20 minutes from downtown. Each side had 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a small kitchen, and a living room. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean, affordable, and came with the unexpected bonus of having Valerie as a neighbor. She was different from Serena in every way that mattered. Where Serena was sharp angles and calculated charm, Valerie was soft curves and genuine warmth. She wore her brown hair in a simple ponytail most days, favored jeans and sweaters over designer clothes, and had the kind of smile that made you feel like you'd just been invited into something good. The rent is $800 a month, utilities split down the middle, she said as we stood in the empty living room. I'm not a crazy landlord. I won't bug you about noise or having people over, as long as you're not throwing keggers every weekend. I think you're safe on that front. My party days ended sometime around 2015. Mine ended around 2010, so we should get along fine. I moved in the following weekend. Valerie helped, showing up with coffee and donuts while I loaded boxes from my truck. This is everything? She asked, looking at my modest pile of possessions. Turns out most of the stuff I thought was mine was actually ours, and ours apparently means Serena's. She kept the furniture? She kept everything except my clothes, my tools, and my books. Oh, and she was generous enough to let me take the coffee maker we got as a wedding gift from my parents. Valerie shook her head. She's really something else. That's one way to put it. Living next to Valerie turned out to be the best part of my post-marriage life. She wasn't intrusive, but she was present in a way that felt comfortable rather than overwhelming. Sometimes I'd come home from work to find a plate of whatever she'd made for dinner sitting on my doorstep with a note. Made too much lasagna again. Help me out? V. Other times, we'd end up talking on the front porch in the evenings, sharing a beer and discussing everything from work to movies to the neighbors' increasingly dramatic landscaping choices. Mrs. Henderson added another garden gnome, Valerie observed one Thursday evening, nodding toward the house across the street. That's got to be at least 20 now. 23. I counted yesterday. You counted the gnomes? I was having a slow day. These conversations were easy in a way that talking to Serena never had been. With Serena, every discussion felt like a negotiation, every opinion a potential landmine. With Valerie, I could just talk. It was during one of these porch conversations that I learned more about her work. She was a pediatric occupational therapist, specializing in helping kids with developmental delays and disabilities learn the skills they needed for daily life. So today, I worked with a 5-year-old who's been struggling with using utensils, she told me. We've been practicing for weeks, and today he finally managed to eat an entire bowl of pudding with a spoon without getting frustrated. That sounds like a big deal. It is. His mom cried. Happy tears, she added quickly. It's amazing how something that seems simple can mean everything to a family. I thought about Serena's dismissal of Valerie's career, how she'd called it boring. There was nothing boring about helping kids overcome challenges, about giving families hope. If anything, Valerie's work had more real impact than all of Serena's cosmetic sales combined. Your sister thinks your job is boring, I said without thinking, then immediately regretted it. Valerie's expression didn't change. I know. Serena thinks anything that doesn't involve making money or getting attention is boring. I didn't mean to. It's okay, Lucas. I know who my sister is. I've known for a long time. But she's still your sister. Yeah, she is. And I love her, but that doesn't mean I have to like her choices or pretend she's a good person. That conversation stayed with me. The idea that you could love someone while still acknowledging their flaws, that loyalty didn't require blindness. It was a concept I'd never quite grasped during my marriage. 2 months after I'd moved in next to Valerie, I finally worked up the courage to file for divorce. I'd been putting it off, partly because of the hassle, and partly because some small part of me kept wondering if Serena might actually change. She didn't. If anything, she'd gotten worse. The few times we'd spoken about dividing our possessions, she'd been cold, calculating, and determined to keep as much as possible. She'd also started a campaign of what I could only call reputation management, making sure everyone in our social circle knew that I was the one who'd abandoned the marriage. She's telling people you had a midlife crisis, Danny informed me over lunch at work. Says you just up and left without trying to work things out. I'm 33. Isn't it a little early for a midlife crisis? That's what I said. But you know how people are. They love drama, and Serena's always been good at spinning a story. I hired a lawyer, a straightforward woman named Patricia Chen who specialized in divorce cases and had zero patience for emotional manipulation. Your wife has made it clear she wants to keep the house, the car, and most of the shared assets, Patricia explained during our first meeting. She's claiming she needs them because you forced her into an unstable situation by leaving. Can she do that? She can try. But Illinois is a no-fault divorce state, and since you have no kids and both work, the court will likely split things fairly evenly. The question is whether you want to fight for specific items or just want to get out clean. I thought about it. The house held more bad memories than good ones at this point. The car was nice, but I had my truck. Most of the furniture had been chosen by Serena anyway. Clean, I said. I just want out. Patricia nodded approvingly. Smart choice. Fighting over stuff usually costs more in legal fees than the stuff is worth. The divorce papers were served to Serena at her work, which I knew would humiliate her. I hadn't requested that specifically, but I wasn't sorry about it either. Let her explain to her coworkers why her husband was divorcing her. She called me that evening, furious. How dare you embarrass me like that? Hello to you too, Serena. Having me served at work? Really, Lucas? That's incredibly petty. I didn't choose where they served you. That's just how it works. You could have warned me. Like you warned me before telling our friends I was adequate in bed? Silence. This is ridiculous, she finally said. You're throwing away 5 years of marriage because of one comment. It wasn't one comment, Serena. It was 5 years of comments. 5 years of you making it clear that I wasn't good enough, smart enough, ambitious enough, or attractive enough for you. That's not... I never said you weren't attractive. You said our kids would be ugly. I was upset. No, you were honest. Probably the most honest you've been with me in years. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, could practically feel her scrambling for a new angle of attack. Fine, she said finally. But I'm not making this easy for you. You want a divorce? You're going to pay for it. I already am paying for it. Patricia's retainer was $3,000. I mean, you're going to pay in other ways. The line went silent. I should have been worried about that threat, but instead, I felt relieved. The mask was finally off. No more pretending we could be civil, no more wondering if there was any part of the woman I'd married left inside the stranger she'd become. That night, Valerie knocked on my door with a bottle of wine and a concerned expression. I heard about the divorce papers, she said. Serena called me, very upset. I bet she did. She wants me to talk to you, to convince you to reconsider. I stepped aside to let her in. And are you going to? God, no. I brought wine to celebrate. We sat on my couch, sharing the bottle and talking about everything except Serena. Valerie told me about her work, about the new therapy techniques she was learning, about her plans to eventually open her own practice. I told her about my projects at work, about the manufacturing system I was designing that would help a local factory increase their efficiency by 30%. That's amazing, she said. You're literally helping people keep their jobs. It's not that dramatic. Yes, it is. More efficient production means the company stays competitive, which means they don't have to lay people off. You're making a real difference. It was the first time in years someone had made me feel like my work mattered, like I mattered. With Serena, my job had always been something to be tolerated, a paycheck that wasn't quite big enough to earn her respect. Serena never saw it that way, I said without thinking. Serena never saw a lot of things the right way. We were sitting closer now, close enough that I could smell her shampoo, something light and floral that reminded me of the garden center where my mom used to take me as a kid. Close enough to notice the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was thinking. I should go, she said suddenly, standing up. It's late, and you probably have work tomorrow. Valerie, wait. She paused at the door, not quite looking at me. Thank you, I said, for the wine, for listening, for everything. These past couple months, having you as a neighbor, it's made everything easier. You don't have to thank me, Lucas. I like having you here. You're good company. After she left, I sat on my couch thinking about the way she'd said my name, the way she'd smiled when I'd made her laugh. I thought about how different she was from her sister, how being around her felt like coming home instead of walking into a battlefield, and I realized I was in trouble. The divorce proceedings dragged on for 6 weeks, with Serena's lawyer throwing up every possible roadblock. She contested the asset division, claimed I owed her spousal support, and even tried to argue that I'd been emotionally abusive by abandoning the marriage without warning. Patricia shot down each claim with professional efficiency, but it was exhausting and expensive. More importantly, it gave Serena time to escalate her campaign against me. I started hearing about it through Danny and my other coworkers. Serena was telling anyone who would listen that I'd had some kind of breakdown, that I'd become controlling and paranoid, that she was scared of what I might do next. She's really going all out, Danny told me over lunch. Janet came into the hardware store yesterday asking if I thought you were stable, like I'm some kind of psychological expert. Janet was Serena's best friend and biggest enabler, a woman who thrived on drama and gossip. If she was asking questions about my mental state, it meant Serena was planning something. I found out what that something was when I got a call from my boss, Oscar Kowalski, asking me to come to his office. Oscar was a good man, a former machinist who'd worked his way up to management through competence and common sense rather than politics. He'd always been fair with me, which made the conversation even more uncomfortable. Lucas, I need to ask you about something, and I want you to be straight with me. Okay. I got a call this morning from someone claiming to be concerned about your mental health. They said you've been going through a difficult divorce and might be having some kind of breakdown. My stomach dropped. Who called? Wouldn't give a name, but it was a woman. Said she was a friend of your wife's and thought I should know that you might be unstable at work. Oscar, that's complete bullshit. I figured as much. You've been doing good work, showing up on time, no problems I can see, but I had to ask. I appreciate that, and I can guess who called. Your wife's friend? Probably my wife herself, but yeah. She's been spreading stories about me being mentally unstable. It's part of her strategy to make the divorce my fault. Oscar nodded slowly. He'd been through his own messy divorce 20 years earlier and understood the games people played. Well, for what it's worth, I told the caller that you're one of my most reliable employees and that if they had concerns about someone's mental health, they should talk to that person directly instead of calling their workplace. Thank you. Just keep doing what you're doing, Lucas, and maybe avoid any unnecessary drama until this divorce is finalized. I promised I would, but Serena wasn't done yet. The next escalation came through our mutual friends, or rather, the people I'd thought were mutual friends. It turned out that most of them had chosen sides, and they hadn't chosen mine. I discovered this when I ran into Mike and Jennifer Hartley at the grocery store. We'd been friends for 3 years, had them over for dinner regularly, gone to their anniversary party just 6 months earlier. Lucas, Mike said, his tone carefully neutral. How are you doing? I'm good, Mike. How are you guys? Jennifer looked uncomfortable, like she wanted to be anywhere else. We're fine, busy with work and everything. We should get together soon, I said, genuinely meaning it. Maybe grab dinner like we used to. Mike and Jennifer exchanged a look that told me everything I needed to know. Actually, Lucas, Mike said, we think it might be better if we... took a break from hanging out for a while. A break? Just until things settle down with your divorce and everything. I don't understand. What does my divorce have to do with our friendship? Jennifer finally spoke up. Serena told us about some of the things you said to her, about how angry you've been. We just think it's better to stay out of it. What things I said to her? About how you blame her for your problems, how you've been threatening. The word hit me like a slap. Threatening. Jennifer, I've never threatened anyone in my life, and you know it. We don't really know what to believe, Mike said. Serena was pretty upset when she talked to us. I looked at these people I'd considered friends, people I'd helped move apartments and loaned tools to, people who'd eaten at my table and laughed at my jokes. Now they were looking at me like I might be dangerous. You know what? I said, my voice carefully controlled. You're right. It is better if we take a break. I walked away without another word, leaving my half-full cart in the aisle. That night, I told Valerie what had happened. We were sitting on her side of the porch, sharing a pizza and trying to pretend the October air wasn't getting too cold for outdoor dining. I'm sorry, she said. That must have hurt. It did, but it also clarified things. If they're willing to believe I'm some kind of threat based on nothing but Serena's word, then they were never really my friends anyway. Serena's always been good at manipulating people. She tells them what they want to hear, makes them feel special, and then uses that loyalty when she needs it. Is that what she did with you? Valerie was quiet for a moment, picking at her pizza. She tried. When we were kids, she was always the pretty one, the popular one. I was the weird sister who liked books and animals more than people. Serena would be nice to me when she needed something, then ignore me the rest of the time. That sounds lonely. It was, but it also taught me to see through her act. When someone only pays attention to you when they want something, you learn not to trust their motives. Is that why you're being nice to me? Because you want something? She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes that made my chest tight. No, Lucas. I'm being nice to you because you're a good person who deserves better than what my sister gave you. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in November. Patricia called me at work with the news. It's done, she said. The judge signed off on everything this morning. You're officially divorced. I should have felt relief or celebration, or at least satisfaction. Instead, I felt empty. 5 years of my life, reduced to a legal document and a division of assets. What did she end up with? The house, the car, about 60% of the shared assets. More than I would have liked, but less than she wanted. She also has to refinance the house to remove your name from the mortgage. And that's it? That's it. You're free, Lucas. Free. It was a word that should have felt good, but mostly it just felt uncertain. I went home early that day, using a personal day I'd been saving. Valerie's car was in the driveway, which meant she was home from work. I knocked on her door without really planning what I was going to say. Lucas, what are you doing home so early? The divorce is final. Her expression softened. How do you feel? I don't know. Empty, I think, like I should feel something more, but I don't know what. She stepped aside to let me in. Do you want to talk about it? Not really. I didn't want to be alone right now. You don't have to be. We ended up on her couch, not talking, just sitting together while some cooking show played on the television. It was comfortable in a way that felt both familiar and completely new. Lucas? Yeah? I'm proud of you. For what? For getting out. For choosing yourself instead of staying in something that was making you miserable. I turned to look at her, this woman who'd shown me more kindness in 3 months than my wife had shown me in years. Valerie, I need to tell you something. What? I think I'm falling in love with you. The words hung in the air between us, and for a moment, I was sure I'd ruined everything. Then she smiled, that soft, genuine smile that had become the best part of my days. I think I'm falling in love with you too. What happened next wasn't a fairy tale. It was better than that. It was real. Valerie and I took things slowly, both of us aware that I was still processing the end of my marriage, and she was navigating the complicated territory of dating her sister's ex-husband. We talked about it extensively, about the potential complications and the family drama it would inevitably cause. Serena's going to lose her mind, Valerie said one evening in December. We'd been officially dating for 3 weeks, though we'd been circling around our feelings for much longer. Are you worried about that? Not worried exactly, but I know my sister. She doesn't like losing, and she really doesn't like losing to me. She didn't lose you to me. She threw me away, and you picked me up. It was corny, but it was true. Valerie had quite literally given me a place to land when my life fell apart, and then she'd helped me build something new. The physical side of our relationship developed naturally, without the pressure and performance anxiety that had characterized my marriage to Serena. With Valerie, intimacy felt like a conversation rather than a test, something we discovered together rather than something I was expected to provide. "You know," she said one night as we lay in her bed, my arm around her shoulders, "Serena used to complain that you weren't romantic enough." She wasn't wrong. I'm not good at grand gestures. I don't want grand gestures. I want this. She gestured to the space around us, the quiet comfort of being together without needing to be anywhere else or anyone else. This? This feeling like I can just be myself with you, like I don't have to perform or impress you or compete for your attention. I understood exactly what she meant. With Serena, I'd always felt like I was auditioning for the role of husband, never quite measuring up to whatever standard she'd set. With Valerie, I felt like I'd already gotten the part. Christmas came and went quietly. Valerie and I exchanged small gifts. I gave her a set of books by an author she'd mentioned loving. She gave me a new toolbox for my workshop. Simple things that showed we'd been paying attention to each other. Serena, meanwhile, had apparently spent the holidays posting elaborate photos on social media, showing off her newly redecorated house and her fresh start. I only knew this because Danny mentioned it, having seen the post through his girlfriend's Facebook feed. "She looks good," he said, then quickly added, "I mean, she looks like she's doing well. Happy. Good for her?" And I meant it. Whatever else had happened between us, I didn't want Serena to be miserable. I just didn't want to be responsible for her happiness anymore. The new year brought changes for both Valerie and me. She'd been accepted into a program to get additional certification in autism spectrum therapy, something she'd been working toward for 2 years. I'd been promoted at work, taking on a senior drafting position that came with a significant raise and more interesting projects. "We should celebrate," Valerie said when I told her about the promotion. "Dinner somewhere fancy. Or we could order Chinese food and celebrate in bed. I like your version better." It was during one of these quiet celebrations that the subject of marriage came up, not as a proposal or a plan, but as a possibility we were both aware of. "Do you think you'd ever want to get married again?" Valerie asked. We were eating takeout Thai food on her living room floor, having decided the couch was too far from the coffee table. A year ago, I would have said absolutely not. Marriage felt like a trap, like a way to legally bind yourself to someone who might decide they don't like you anymore. And now? Now I think maybe I just married the wrong person. She smiled at that. What would marriage to the right person look like? I thought about it, twirling pad thai around my fork. Partnership, I think. 2 people choosing to build something together instead of one person trying to change the other into what they want. That sounds nice. What about you? Ever think about getting married? I used to think I was too boring for anyone to want to marry me. You're not boring. I know that now. But growing up with Serena, being constantly compared to her, it does things to your self-esteem. I understood that. Living with Serena had done things to my self-esteem too. For what it's worth, I said, I think you're the most interesting person I know. Even more interesting than Mrs. Henderson and her gnome collection? Well, let's not get crazy. We were happy. It was that simple and that complicated. We were 2 people who'd found each other at exactly the right time, when we were both ready to appreciate what we had instead of mourning what we'd lost. But happiness, I was learning, has a way of making other people uncomfortable, especially when that other person is your girlfriend's sister and your ex-wife. Serena found out about Valerie and me in March, 6 months after our divorce was finalized. I'm not sure how. Maybe she saw us together somewhere. Maybe one of her remaining friends spotted us and reported back. However it happened, her reaction was swift and nuclear. The first sign was the phone calls. Valerie's phone rang at 2 a.m, and when she answered it, Serena was screaming so loudly I could hear her from across the bed. "You backstabbing snake! How could you do this to me?" "Serena, calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down. You stole my husband." "I didn't steal anyone. You divorced him, remember?" "That doesn't give you the right to... God, Valerie, he's my ex-husband. There are rules about this." Valerie sat up in bed, running her hand through her hair. "What rules, Serena? The rules where you get to treat him like garbage for years and then dictate who he can date after you divorce him? He's using you to get back at me." "Everything isn't about you." "Bullshit. This is exactly the kind of petty revenge Lucas would pull. He's probably laughing about this, about how he got my own sister to betray me." I took the phone from Valerie. "Hello, Serena." Silence then. "You snake." "I'm going to hang up now. If you want to have a conversation like adults, you can call back when you're sober." "Don't you dare." I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Valerie turned it off. "She's going to make this ugly," Valerie said. "Are you having second thoughts?" "About us?" "No, about dealing with my sister's drama. Absolutely." But Serena was just getting started. Over the next few days, she launched a campaign that made her post-divorce reputation management look subtle. She called Valerie's work, claiming to be a concerned family member worried about Valerie's emotional stability and poor judgment. She contacted our landlord, trying to get information about our living situation. She even showed up at my workplace, demanding to speak to Oscar about my harassment of her family. Oscar, to his credit, refused to see her and had security escort her off the property. "She's lost her damn mind," he told me afterward. "I've seen some messy divorces, but this is something else." The final straw came when Serena decided to involve Valerie's parents. I'd never met Robert and Linda Morrison, but Valerie had described them as good people who'd always struggled to understand their younger daughter's need for drama and attention. They were retired teachers, quiet folks who valued family harmony above almost everything else. Serena called them and painted a picture of Valerie as a manipulative homewrecker who'd seduced her sister's husband and destroyed their family. She claimed I was controlling and potentially dangerous, that Valerie was in an abusive relationship and too blind to see it. The Morrisons, worried about their older daughter and confused by the situation, decided to drive up from Springfield to see for themselves what was happening. They arrived on a Saturday morning in late March, pulling into the driveway in a sensible sedan and looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Valerie met them at the door, clearly nervous. "Mom, Dad, this is Lucas." Robert Morrison was a tall, thin man with gray hair and the careful posture of someone who'd spent 40 years managing classrooms full of teenagers. Linda was smaller, with Valerie's kind eyes and a worried expression. "Mr. and Mrs. Morrison," I said, shaking Robert's hand. "I'm sorry we're meeting under these circumstances." "So are we," Robert said. "We need to talk." We sat in Valerie's living room, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Linda kept glancing around like she expected to see evidence of whatever story Serena had told them. "Serena says you're manipulating Valerie," Robert said without preamble. "She says you're using her to get revenge for your divorce." "I can see why you'd be concerned if that's what you've been told," I said. "But it's not true." "Then what is true?" Linda asked. Because Serena was very upset. She said you've turned Valerie against her family. Valerie spoke up. "Mom, Serena and I have had problems for years. This isn't about Lucas." "But you are dating your sister's ex-husband," Robert pointed out. "Yes, I am, and I'm happy." "Valerie," Linda said gently, "we're worried that you might be confused. This situation is very complicated." "I'm not confused, Mom. I'm in love." The words hung in the air. It was the first time either of us had said it in front of other people, and despite the circumstances, hearing it made my chest warm. "How do we know this isn't some kind of rebound situation?" Robert asked, looking at me. "You just got divorced. Valerie was convenient." That stung, but I understood where it was coming from. "Mr. Morrison, I know how this looks, but I didn't plan this, and neither did Valerie. We became friends, and then we became something more. It happened naturally." "Serena says you were having an affair during your marriage." "Serena is lying," I said flatly. "I never cheated on her, and Valerie never did anything inappropriate. We didn't even start dating until months after my divorce was final." "Then why is Serena so upset?" Valerie sighed. "Because Serena doesn't like losing, and she really doesn't like losing to me. She spent our entire lives making sure I knew I was the lesser sister, the boring one, the one who'd never amount to anything. The idea that I might have something she wanted, even something she threw away, drives her crazy." "That's a terrible thing to say about your sister," Linda said. "It's a terrible thing to be true about my sister." The conversation continued for another hour, with the Morrisons asking questions and Valerie and I trying to explain our relationship in a way that made sense to people who'd only heard Serena's version of events. Finally, Robert stood up. "We need some time to process this." "I understand," Valerie said, "but I need you to understand something too. I'm 36 years old. I'm not a child who needs to be rescued from her own decisions. I'm happy with Lucas, happier than I've ever been, and I'm not going to give that up because Serena can't handle it." Her parents left without saying much more, promising to call in a few days. After they were gone, Valerie collapsed onto the couch next to me. "That went well," she said sarcastically. "They're worried about you. That's not a bad thing." "I know, but I'm tired of having to justify my choices to everyone. I'm tired of Serena making everything about her drama." "So what do? We live our lives. We be happy. And we let Serena exhaust herself with all this anger." It sounded like a good plan, but Serena wasn't done yet. The final confrontation came 2 weeks later when Serena showed up at our door on a Thursday evening, clearly drunk and absolutely furious. "I want to talk to you," she said, pointing at me through the screen door. "Serena, you're drunk," Valerie said. "Go home. Don't tell me what to do. This is between me and him." I opened the screen door and stepped onto the porch. "What do you want, Serena?" "I want to know what your game is. What's this really about?" "There's no game. I'm dating your sister because I care about her." "Bullshit. This is about hurting me." "You know what, Serena? Not everything is about you. I know that's hard for you to understand, but it's true." "You snake. You think you're so much better than me now, don't you? You and your boring little life with my boring sister." "I think I'm happier than I was when I was married to you. That's all." "Happy?" She laughed, that sharp sound I remembered so well. "You think this is happiness? Wait until you get tired of her, Lucas. Wait until you realize she's just as pathetic as you are." "That's enough," Valerie said, coming out onto the porch. "Oh, look, it's the happy couple. Tell me, Valerie, what's it like being someone's second choice? What's it like knowing he only wants you because he couldn't fix me?" "I wouldn't know," Valerie said calmly, "because that's not what this is. Isn't it? You've always wanted what I had, haven't you? When we were kids, you wanted my friends, my clothes, my boyfriends. Now you want my husband." "Ex-husband," I corrected. "And you didn't want me, remember? I was too ugly and stupid to father your children." Serena's face flushed. "I was upset when I said that." "No, you were honest. For once in our marriage, you told me exactly what you thought of me, and you know what? It was the best thing you ever did for me." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you set me free, Serena. You showed me who you really were, and it made it easy to walk away." And right into her arms. "Eventually, yes. And I've never been happier." Serena looked between us, her face cycling through anger, hurt, and something that might have been genuine sadness. "This isn't over," she said finally. "Yes, it is," Valerie said. "It's been over for a long time. You just haven't accepted it yet." Serena stumbled back to her car, and we watched her drive away, probably too drunk to be behind the wheel, but too proud to call for a ride. "Think she'll keep coming around?" I asked. "For a while, but eventually she'll find something else to focus on, someone else to blame for her problems. And us? We'll be fine. Better than fine." She was right. Over the next few months, Serena's calls became less frequent, her dramatic gestures smaller and more pathetic. She was running out of people who would listen to her complaints, running out of energy to sustain her anger. Meanwhile, Valerie and I were building something real. We talked about the future, about moving in together officially, about marriage and children and all the things I'd once thought were impossible. "I want kids with you," I told her one evening in June, almost a year after I'd left Serena. "Even though they might be ugly and slow?" she asked, referencing Serena's cruel words. "Especially because they might be ugly and slow? The world needs more ugly, slow kids who are loved unconditionally." "I love you, Lucas Morgan." "I love you too, Valerie Morrison." "Actually," she said, smiling that smile that had become my favorite thing in the world, "I've been thinking about that." "About what?" "About my name, about maybe changing it." "To what?" "Morgan. Valerie Morgan has a nice ring to it, don't you think?" I kissed her then, right there on the porch where we'd spent so many evenings talking and laughing and falling in love. And for the first time in my adult life, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. 3 months later, we were married in a small ceremony at the courthouse, with just a few close friends and Valerie's parents, who would eventually come around to accepting our relationship. It wasn't the big wedding Serena and I had had, with the elaborate flowers and expensive photographer and guest list full of people who barely knew us. It was better. It was real. Serena didn't come, of course. We hadn't invited her, and she probably wouldn't have come anyway, but her absence felt like a blessing rather than a loss, a final closing of a door that had needed to be closed for a long time. As we stood in front of the judge, promising to love and honor each other, I thought about the journey that had brought us there, about cruel words that had set me free, about a woman who had picked me up when I was broken and helped me become whole again. "You may kiss the bride," the judge said. And I did, sealing a promise that felt as solid and real as the ground beneath our feet. Later, at the small reception Valerie's parents had insisted on hosting, Robert Morrison pulled me aside. "I owe you an apology," he said. "When we first met, I thought you might be using Valerie to get back at Serena. I understand why you thought that. But watching you two together, seeing how happy she is, I was wrong. You're good for each other." "Thank you, sir. That means a lot. Take care of her." "I will." And I meant it. After years of feeling like I wasn't enough, like I was always falling short of some impossible standard, I had found someone who thought I was exactly enough. Someone who loved me not despite my flaws, but including them. Someone who had never once suggested that our children would be ugly and slow. As the evening wound down and Valerie and I prepared to leave for our honeymoon, a long weekend at a cabin in Wisconsin, nothing fancy but perfect for us, I caught sight of myself in the mirror behind the bar. I looked happy. Not the forced, performative happiness I'd worn during my first marriage, but genuine contentment. The kind of happiness that comes from being exactly who you are with someone who loves exactly who you are. "Ready to go, husband?" Valerie asked, slipping her hand into mine. "Ready, wife." We walked out into the warm September evening, toward our truck and our future and our life together. Behind us, the party continued without us, full of people who genuinely cared about our happiness. And somewhere else in the city, Serena was probably posting something on social media about her fabulous single life, trying to convince herself and everyone else that she was better off without the man she'd called too ugly and stupid to father her children. I didn't feel sorry for her. I didn't feel angry with her either. Mostly, I felt grateful, because her cruelty had been the catalyst for everything good that had happened since. Her rejection had forced me to find someone who would never reject me. Her contempt had led me to someone who valued me. Her loss had become my gain in the most literal sense possible. And as we drove away from our wedding reception, Valerie's hand in mine and our whole future spread out before us like an open road, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just living well.